Welcome everyone and good afternoon. My name is Hope Batista. I want to thank you for joining today's session. Today we are diving into an essential technique in financial decision making, the sensitivity analysis. This tool helps us bring clarity to uncertainty, and especially when we're evaluating large capital projects that will shape long-term trajectory of our organization. These are the topics that we will be covering today. On each slide at the bottom right, you will see references for the topics that we will be discussing so that you're able to reference these points later on. If you have any additional questions, you can always look at these references. And I do highly encourage at the end of this presentation, please make sure you check out these references, do a little bit more investigation, and look into these references if you have any specific questions. Let's begin with the fundamentals. Capital budgeting is the process of determining whether a long-term investment, like a new facility, product line, or piece of equipment, is financially viable. These projects rely heavily on forecasted metrics like net present value, or NPV, and internal rate of return, the IRR, both of which are built on assumptions such as future sales, cost of capital, timelines, inflation, and beyond. Any changes to those assumptions can dramatically affect our decision making. This is where sensitivity analysis becomes a critical tool to help us ask, what if the future looks different than what we expect? Sensitivity analysis evaluates the robustness of a project by systematically altering individual variables, such as cost or revenue projections, and observing the effects on the investment's financial outcomes. It does not eliminate uncertainty, but it allows us to understand the extent of the nature of the uncertainty. Now let's walk through how this works from a quantitative perspective. Melcher and Norton outlined this process in 5 core steps. The first is identifying the key input variables. These include unit sales, pricing, variable costs, fixed costs, or discount rates. The second is to define a base case scenario using most likely estimates. The third is to vary one variable at a time, typically by plus or minus 10 to 20%, while keeping other inputs constant. Number 4 is recalculating the NPV or the IRR for each variation. And number 5 is the visualizing the results of using sensitivity tables or tornado diagrams, which clearly show how variables exert the most influence on outcomes. This what-if analysis is especially useful when inputs operate within a complex model or so-called black box. It helps decision makers understand which variables matter the most and which can be monitored or hedged against. But sensitivity analysis is not just about crunching numbers. It also requires qualitative interpretations. Judgment is essential in evaluating the confidence we place in different assumptions. For example, projected sales volumes might appear stable on paper, but if it depends on the untested markets or volatile customer demand, or our risk exposure increases, even if the model says otherwise. Pairing sensitivity analysis with scenario building and stakeholder dialogue enhances clarity and drives stronger strategic alignment. It facilitates consistency, planning, and strengthens communication by helping stakeholders visualize downside scenarios, and not just the upside of potential. Let's compare sensitivity analysis with the expected monetary value, or EMV. EMV assigns probabilities to different outcomes and calculates a weight average. It's most useful when probabilities are known or reliable, whereas sensitivity analysis doesn't require probabilities. It simply tests the extremities, which is a key variable that changes by 10%, 20%, or even 30%. This range is based on methods ideal for identifying break-even thresholds and testing the resiliency of a project. Both approaches are complementary to each other. The EMV gives us an expected result based on risk probabilities, whereas sensitivity analysis shows us which assumptions push the project into a negative territory. So from this, we're going to go ahead and take this and look at a real world example. So we're going to imagine that we're evaluating an investment in an automated packaging equipment. Our base case project is about $1 million in annual savings from labor efficiency and waste reduction. But when we test a 15% increase in the maintenance cost, the NPV drops below our project threshold. Similarly, a 10% delay in the rollout pushes the IRR down by several percentage points. These outcomes don't necessarily kill the investment, but they provide essential insight, identifying how highly sensitive variables in advance allows teams to proactively allocate budget buffers, reinforcing training plans, or negotiating support contracts before committing capital. There are some key takeaways that we want to highlight from today's conversation. And to wrap it up, sensitivity analysis is more than just a modeling tool. It's a conversation starter. It uncovers which inputs matter the most and how vulnerable the project is to the changes in those areas. It combines quantitative modeling with qualitative judgment to build a decision flexibility. It supports contingency planning and stakeholder alignment. And when it pairs with tools like the EMV, it forms a comprehensive risk awareness framework for capital budgeting. Ultimately, the value of sensitivity analysis lies not on the predicting the future, but in preparing for possibilities. As I mentioned in the beginning, these are the resources that I used for today's conversation. I highly suggest going through and taking a look at each of these articles and some of these works. They help in understanding today's topic maybe a little bit more if you have any specific questions. As always, I thank you for attending today's session. If you have any questions, again, my name is Hope Batista. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions or concerns, and I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day.